Hello! Today I'm teaching you about tea, a certain kind of tea explicitly. So, what kind of tea is this? It's dark tea. Notice I didn't say black tea, I said dark tea. It differentiates itself, and it's quite unfamiliar in the United States and in the Western world. Its closest cousin in the tea family would be pu'er tea, but today we're talking about dark tea. So, what does dark tea look like? It looks like that. And if you just said, what the fuck is that? Then this video is for you. So, alright, we'll get to teaching it. Okay, so this is a Yixing clay teapot, and I make dark tea exclusively in it. So, let's go ahead and make our tea. So we're going to take our tea brick and put it in our teapot. Wait. Now see, that really doesn't fit. That's not going to work. And that's way too much tea. So what are we going to do? Well, let's first talk about why this tea is in this brick form and why it's so hard to put in the teapot. So, a lot of people may know pu'er tea, but they might not have heard of dark tea. In reality, pu'er tea is a subcategory of dark tea. But this leaves the question, what is dark tea? Well, it's a double fermented tea, which generally stems from a green tea. Green tea is one of the least abused teas during the production, where pretty much all that they do is dry the tea, shape it, and briefly fire it to kill any organisms. In dark tea production, the green tea is taken and fermented in order to provide for microbial organisms to thrive in the tea. It is a tea that is touted to have many health benefits, namely in terms of gut health and digestion. This tea is very popular in Mongolia because the Mongolian diet is lacking in fiber and vegetation, and their diet is very animal-based. Therefore, they need a bit of help getting things moving, if you know what I mean. They'll sometimes mix yak butter into their dark tea to help digestion, so bullet coffee may not be as big of an innovation as people think. My particular tea log came at 20 pounds and only cost $75. Compare this to a pound of practically any other loose leaf tea, and you will realize it's extremely cheap. This is in the design of dark tea, as it is meant to be a common person tea. It has been made for over 400 years, and was originally used as a trade item along the borders of China. As is generally common for dark teas, mine is compressed into a dense form. In fact, it's extremely dense. Common shapes are bricks, discs, and logs. Mine came wrapped in lattice bamboo, which was definitely a puzzle to undo. Under the bamboo, the tea is wrapped in bamboo leaves that should be taken off of the tea. However, these bamboo leaves were present during the compression and sometimes are folded up inside of the compressed tea, but they can be separated later on when you break the tea apart. So, real quick, let's answer why we may not know of dark tea in the West. Dark tea is made and then is commonly shipped west in China, and this helps it get to Mongolia, Russia, and Western China. So that's where the tea is popular, but the tea is generally not shipped eastwards, and therefore it hasn't really made its way to the US, and it generally isn't shipped far enough west that it makes it to Western Europe, which is why we generally don't know it. I found it to be extremely difficult when I first got a tea log of this size to break it apart. There is a special knife that they use for separating dark tea, but I don't have one, and I didn't see a need to get one. So, here are the following methods that I have tried in getting pieces separated from my log. I've tried running it over with my car. I've tried Hulk smashing it. I've tried prying it apart with knives. I've tried twisting it apart with my hands. I've tried prying it apart with my fingers. And I've tried prying it apart with a fork. Amazingly, nothing at all happened to the log when I ran it over with my car. On update, it didn't break at all. I ran it over and it did not break at all. It stayed completely solid. Hulk smashing it can break the log into different pieces, but it generally won't break the tea enough to be usable. Using common house knives is pretty scary because it's so dense you generally slip off of it, and I've learned not to go that route. Twisting the tea with my hands did break the tea up, but I also had tea splinters in my palms for about a week. Prying the tea apart with the fingers can work, but only with loose pieces. I found that a handy dandy fork is the best method for me to break apart my tea log, and the tines of the fork act as I imagine the dark tea knife works. You're able to work them in between parts and then twist and pry and everything, and you'll pop parts off. Alright, so let's work on this for a little bit, and I'll fast forward here. So, with enough time and patience, you can get this done without making a mess at all or getting frustrated.
Ah, fuck.
When you're done breaking apart the tea, make sure to carefully sort out each piece of bamboo leaf and only put the tea leaves in your jar. Now we need to make the tea. And I like to do this according to the traditional tea ceremony. So I have my Yixing clay teapot, which is traditionally what it's done in. And this teapot is on this wooden deal. That's according to the ceremony. And I don't have Yixing clay glasses, but I have these Tetsuban ones. Here is warm water. I just got this from the tap. It's a little bit warmer than my hand. This is going to be used to wash the tea. Here I have scalding hot water. This is as hot as I could get it, boiling, and that'll be used to make the actual tea. This is an empty bowl. So what we're going to do is put the clay teapot in the bowl, and we're going to heat it up. This is to make sure that the tea stays warm. Open this bad boy and just pour it right on top. And we want to fill it up enough to where it's about halfway up, just enough to keep the teapot warm. Now we're going to pour this out because we don't want that hot water staying in there when we put the tea leaves in there. So we'll just dump it out. Okay, now I'll open that bad boy up, get my teacups ready, and load it up with tea. We want to load it up anywhere from 5/8 to 2/3 full to leave a little room for the tea to expand. But I load this up quite full, and that's because we can do a ton of multiple steeps with dark tea. We can steep it, 10 times plus. And, as long as we elongate the steep time each time, we'll have flavorful tea. Alright, so that's filled. Now we're going to pour that lukewarm water over the top. We don't want to put hot water in because we're just cleaning the leaves. Something about the manufacturing process, you don't want to drink the first steep. If you were to do that, there's just some bad things in there and we don't really want that. So we're just going to put that lukewarm water in there and then just dump it right out into the bowl. I have no idea why I put it in the cups. I could have just poured it right in the bowl. We want to make sure to get all that water out. No leftover water. Alright, now we'll do the first steep. So we're going to pour our boiling hot water in. And we don't want to leave it for very long. And when we're making dark tea, we don't want to pour the water in super fast. Dark tea likes it when you slowly pour the water in. Versus fresh green tea, where you would pour the water in super fast. Or white tea, where you would pour the water in as fast as possible. So it's steeped long enough. And then we put the top on. And it's okay if some water squishes out. This is not meant to be the cleanest of situations. Okay, so now I pour the first steep out. And the reason why I do this is there's a thought process in this tea ceremony where you're going to eventually end up coating your teapot in the tea. And that's because it soaks into the clay and helps to harden and protect it and make a patina. So eventually, after doing this long enough, the teapot will be shiny from all the saturated tea. Then we make sure to get that out, because we don't want it making the tea leaves in there bitter. Okay, now we're going to make the first drinkable pot of tea. So again, pour our water in. And we're going to let it steep for a little bit longer here. Maybe 10 to 15 seconds. Okay, cover it up. And we'll put that in our Tetsubin steel cups. So my 2 cups did not take the entire pot of tea, so I made sure to dump the rest out into the bowl. That's fine. It'll go into the teapot later on. But we, again, want to make sure to get all that water out, because otherwise our tea leaves will get extra bitter. And we don't want that flavor to saturate into the porous clay, because then that bitter flavor will continue into other pots of tea and impart on the flavor. And we don't want that. So always make sure to take the top off, because we don't want our tea leaves cooking in there. From the saturated heat into the clay, it will continue to heat up the tea and potentially overheat them, again, creating bitterness. So I checked the temperature here, and it was hot as balls. And again, those are steel cups, so I'm not going to be able to pick those up. I want it to get a clear cup here so that you could just see the coloring of the dark tea. So you'll notice that the dark tea is a nice golden brown with sort of amber hues. And just on the nose, it smells like it almost has honey in it already, like a black tea with honey in it. Okay, so on the flavor, right away you get some hay-like qualities. It's very earthy. And it's no tannins noticeable. I mean, if there are any, they're extremely minimal. This is not a real bitter tea. It almost has a natural sweetness to it. Oh yeah, definitely that earthiness. You get an almost vegetal flavor, but mixed with that hay and that earthiness and that natural sweetness. Oh, this is great stuff. You could drink this all day. Now, as far as caffeine levels go, it's kind of strong. You drink 3 or 4 cups of this, you're going to feel it. But there's so few tannins in this tea that you can drink quite a bit of it without feeling sick to your stomach, which I really love about it. It definitely is an all-day tea. All right, and there you have it. That is dark tea. This stuff is super delicious. It doesn't need sweetener. The only thing I'll say is if you do use sweetener, do not put it in your Yixing pot, because flavors get imbued into the clay, and those flavors will linger, which is also why I only make this one type of tea in this pot, because I like that flavor and I want that flavor to linger. I'll make another dark tea in here and maybe a pu'er, but I will not make like a green tea. No way. Or something floral. That flavor is going to stick in here and then go over to my other pots, and I don't want that at all. So, all right. This has been dark tea. All right. See ya.